Video games are not the future of VR. Or are they? We're going to be talking about all that and more, but first, coffee. Alright, today's actually quite an exciting coffee because I recently went to the Buck coffee shop. You can't really see it, but it's actually this white coffee dripper. It says coffee dripper here on the side. This is actually by a company called Buck Coffee, which is actually a coffee, it's actually a cafe in Japan, in Tokyo, which has nothing to do with Buck. I think they just liked the idea that Buck was often teaching all his masterful skills to his students, and that's what they do with their coffee. They have these coffee meisters, and they teach coffee, or coffee dripping, to their students. This coffee is called Guatemala Compostera. Now, I didn't have this coffee in the cafe itself. I had a Malawi coffee, but this time I decided to buy some Guatemala Compostera to take home with me. This is the packaging from the Cafe Baja Bean. It says, since 1968. I wonder if this cafe has actually been running since 1968 in Tokyo. I'd be very surprised if it actually had been. I can't really show any photos because they actually said don't take any photos in there, but I did get a photo of the coffee cup itself, or maybe I'll put a picture of that in here. Anyway, so what I'd like to talk about today is VR, and specifically VR that is tethered to computers and VR that is standalone. Recently, I think there was a GDC event and a lot of new headsets were being unveiled. You've got Windows mixed reality headsets, you've got the Oculus headsets, and you've got the Valve Vive headsets, and then you've got they've got like the Valve headset that has nothing to do with Vive. Anyway, it's all very complicated. But apart from just talking about gear, I want to talk about the future of VR and where I kind of see it going, because I've had a little experience with VR. But honestly speaking, my VR headset has been broken pretty much since day one, so I've not used it that often, and when I have used it, I've been able to play like Beat Saber, but basically, I think I've got a hardware issue. I can actually just show you the link box here. Oh, it's got sellotape on it because I tried to sellotape it to my desk. It works sometimes and doesn't work other times. Sometimes if I reset my computer like 10 times, it magically comes back to life, but most of the time it doesn't work. So anyway, hopefully Vive will replace that for me. I probably have to pay for it since it's out of warranty, but hey, who cares, whatever. So this Guatemala Compostera in here. Whoa, no, I keep dropping beans! So I think when most people think about VR, they mostly consider the idea of VR gaming. Like, VR is something that you can do and play games. You can shoot stuff, you can complete levels, you can run around virtual worlds. But I would say, from what I've seen, and we've had VR for some time now, I don't really think that gaming is the future of VR. Now, I don't think that means that video games will disappear from VR. Far from it. If anything, we'll have more and more VR games in the future. But I don't think that gaming is what's going to take VR off, make VR take off. Let's grind! The way that I see VR happening right now is that we have a bunch of video games on it. We have these VR experiences on Steam that you can play. And the people who bought into VR and have an expensive computer that can run it, have an expensive headset that can run it, are enjoying it. But then I started watching these comedy videos where people are going into VR chat and interacting with each other and having social experiences. And I really don't think that gaming is really what's going to help VR take off in the next. And also just thinking about the gear, because a lot of the focus on gear that's coming out this year is untethered headsets. So as you can see, I've got a headset that has one long cable connected to my computer, which goes to something like a link box. And anyway, you would run it through a PC. The graphics and everything is processed on the PC and sent to the headset. But a lot of the headsets that are coming out this year and also last year and the year before are focusing on standalone experiences. So headsets that, hold on, can I get it out? Headsets that don't have this cable. You literally just have this one thing. Let's experience it. If I can get the cables out. Alright, so I've taken the cables out and it looks like this. This is what I think VR will look like for the mainstream in the future. It'll just be this headset, you can strap it on, you can stick it on your face like so, wrap it on, and now you're in VR. Watch a movie, you can go on Skype chat with your friends, you can play some video games, you can put on some Parsec and play video games with a friend or something. I think gaming and social activities and all of these things will happen in VR. But I don't think it's the games that will help VR to take off. VR is trying to find its place in our lives, a bit like how the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation Vita had to find their ways kind of out of our lives, because as the Nintendo 3DS and PS Vita were sort of on the decline, we end up having we had smartphones coming in to replace it. And look, a lot of people are playing games and are becoming gamers, whatever you define as a gamer. You're a PC gamer, you're a smartphone gamer, doesn't really matter. Those things will continue to happen. But what I really think is that VR will become much more of a lifestyle product. Like right now, I think VR is something that we can plug in to go and do stuff. Exciting new experiences that we've never had before. But essentially, what I really think is gonna happen is we're gonna have these phones where, you know, we get on the train and this camera will be active, so we'll still be able to see everything around us. But, you know, instead of holding our phone up like this, we're able to just relax like this and look at some screens over here. We'll have a movie running, a YouTube video, our email clients, Twitter, Discord in the middle. We'll be playing some video games. I really think that gaming is just going to be a part of the VR experience, but the main experience will be what mobile phones are to us right now. We get on the train and the first thing we do is we get out our phone and we check Twitter. The first thing we do when we get home, check and see if I've got any messages. I need to change a track on my music, to get out my phone and I'll change the music on there. I need to set an alarm so my pasta doesn't overcook itself. I'll switch on my phone. Hey Siri, set a timer for 8 minutes, stuff like that. VR's way into our lives will be to integrate with the lives that we already lead. Now that's actually only part 1. I've got part 2 to this as well. I'd like it to be a little bit... Been grinding it quite coarsely recently. I want it to be more finely ground. Alright, the beans are ground, let's go ahead and grab the hot water. Alright, so I say that integrating VR into our lives, in much the way that the smartphone has integrated itself into our lives, is maybe the future for VR. But why would I come to that conclusion? And having experienced now using the expensive but quite impressive HTC Vive, which is something like $600 or $700 and includes the need for base stations, cables, a PC, and a lot of other stuff. I am really very interested in not having to plug in my PC, and basically because I'm one of the people who's had a lot of technical trouble getting Vive to work, mostly because I think I do have a hardware issue with it. I really think that the technical issues and the range of problems that could happen with graphics cards, CPU, with software compatibility, with language compatibility, with hardware compatibility, there's just too many variables, which mean that the PC VR experience will not be the mainstream VR experience for most people. And that's not a problem, I don't think. If you want to play the ultimate in VR gaming, of course, I think PC VR will obviously still be the king in that regard and still be the best place to experience that. But I really do think that these standalone headsets, the ones that they'll come in at maybe $200 to $300, and once those become these more budget experiences, once they become more mainstream and more people have them, then people will become more okay with spending $800 or $900 on a standalone VR headset, in much the same way that, and I've said this before, I'm okay with spending $800 or $900 on my iPhone because it fills so many spaces in my life where I need that tech. Being able to get on the train, check my phone, check for emails, check for messages, check through Twitter, check my YouTube channel, check through Discord. I can actually live stream from my phone if I wanted to. I can contact people, I can do business with people. I could actually write spreadsheets and Word documents on my phone. My phone, even though it costs more than a lot of laptops do, it actually does far more things than my laptop ever could, right? And that's because we've spent 6 or 7 or 8 years developing the smartphone category as a place where we can actually use this stuff. I think that's what's gonna happen with VR. We're gonna have $200 or $300 headsets, which are going to make people have more VR in the hands of more people, and especially, I think, at home, where you're sitting with your friends, and every time you put on the VR headset, suddenly you have to disappear to some far-off land where no one else can interact with you. Instead, I think it'll be better and easier for more people to get into VR when we can afford maybe 2 of these cheaper $200 headsets, and maybe 2 people in the house can get into VR chat, and they can join the same chat room. And so they're together in real life, maybe in the same house, maybe they live together, But then you can also go off. It's like, hey, do you want to go and visit this cool place I discovered? There's an episode of Sword Art Online where Asuna actually takes her mother. She's like, hey, put on this headset, and I'll go to my room. I'll put on my headset, and we'll visit the same place together in our VR world of Sword Art Online. And let me show you the beauty of this place that I could only find in the virtual world, because it's a recreation of a place that doesn't exist anymore in real life. Something like that. Let's take the coffee off here. Pour this Guatemala Compostela, Guatemala Compostela from the Buck Cafe bean. Oh, it's got some sharp edges to it. It's like a smooth water slide with serrated edges along the edges. You know exactly what I mean, come on. This will continue to go. We'll have lots of these expensive VR headsets that will continue to go, but what's really going to help VR is cheaper VR headsets and a less focus on the video gaming side. A lot of my friends who are into VR as well, I think they worry that if cheap VR takes off and everyone experiences cheap VR, they'll get the wrong idea of it and think, oh, VR is not that great, and then never join VR again, and that cheap headsets are actually going to hurt VR. I really think, personally, it's the opposite. I think having as many cheap headsets as possible until we've basically got 6 in the same household, because right now if you've got 2 parents and 4 children, maybe there'll be 1 VR headset in the house if you're lucky. But in the future we'll have, just like smartphones, in one house with 2 parents and 4 kids, you'll have maybe 6 smartphones, 3 iPads, and maybe 2 VR headsets, and then after that 3 VR headsets, until eventually you've got like 5 or 6 cheap VR headsets, and maybe you've got some old ones from 3 years ago, and maybe you've got the newest one from this year, but there'll be things like Oculus Quest, these ones that are built in, or Oculus Go, where they've got no smartphone attached to it. It's literally just the processing unit and everything is inside the headset, and you've got nothing but this. You just go, hey, who wants to play some VR? Okay, let's jump in. Hey, who wants to go and visit the Grand Canyon and go and chill out over there, and let's talk about what we're gonna do next week. It's like, oh yeah, let's do it. Okay, I'll put on my headset, you put on your headset, let's go. We're done. Doing that same thing on a PC is nowhere near as easy. Let's say that you wanted to do it with 4 of you. You need 4 VR capable PCs, and they could be laptops, but you would still need to set up 4 VR PCs. You would need to have base stations. In the short term, what's gonna really help VR is getting more people to own headsets so that we can do these cooperative experiences where I can, with a friend, relax at home, and instead of just watching Netflix on the TV, we could be like, hey, why don't the 2 of us go to our virtual cinema and watch it on a wall, and we can have a shared experience. One of the greatest issues with VR is that it takes you out of your room. It takes you out of the social experience. You've already made the trouble of getting your friends over. Now you're going to do this thing where you're the only one that can't see, or you're the only one who can see this magical thing that no one else can see. And it's the same thing with VR YouTube videos. Why are VR YouTube videos so unsatisfying to watch? It's like, well, clearly it's a lot of fun for the person who's wearing the headset making that video. But as a video experience, you're just watching it and you're 100%, 150%, you're very, very, very conscious that you are not getting all the joy and fun that the person who's actually wearing the headset is, and that bugs you. It's like, wow, that looks like it's a lot of fun, but I'm not actually the one wearing the headset. Or, wow, that person looks like they're waving around those lightsabers. That looks like a fun, but I'm not actually the one doing it. And watching someone else do it, for a little while, it's kind of cool, but eventually it's like, yeah, but I just want to be there. This looks like it's fun because I want to do it. A bit like a lot of gaming videos where it's like, okay, sometimes I watch other people play fighting games, but most of the time it just makes me want to just switch off the video, turn on my own fighting game, pick up an arcade stick, and just play the game myself. Or sometimes I'll have the YouTube video of someone else playing a fighting game, or a Twitch stream rather, and I'll be playing the game as well at the same time. I've just like got them there for company, which is a completely different topic for another coffee video. In the short term, we need these cheaper headsets so that we can have more people doing these cooperative experiences, and so it's just ease of use. Because the other potential application of this is that we could actually ride the train with this. It could be clear, so we'd have our augmented reality. We could actually see where we're going. It's like, okay, I'm around the world, but now I've just got this overlay. It's like, okay, there's a person over there. Oh wow, because I'm registered as friends with them, I can actually see a little light above their head. It says, that person's a friend of mine, that person's a friend of mine. Oh, hey, I've got a friend of mine that's like 3 meters away from me. I could actually go and search for them and find them. Or I could actually look up restaurants and it would show me overlays of which restaurants have food that I like, or which restaurants have food that I'm allergic to. I could sit down on the train, and then like I was saying before, I could check my emails, watch a video, I could type up a document. Because I know from commuting to work for however long it takes to get there, I'll sit there on my phone, and even if I've got my PS Vita or if I've got my Nintendo Switch with me, I will just stick on my phone, and eventually my neck will hurt and I'm hunched over because it's this tiny little screen, and I wish I had my iPad, but I don't want the screen to be huge because everyone will it just gets in the way. Whipping out a 13-inch tablet on a train just makes you feel like, it feels like you've got out a newspaper, and I've seen people do it on the train. Anyway, I'm getting kind of excited. So that's my initial point, is that potentially these VR headsets could become so integrated into our lives that we use them exactly the same way that we use our mobile phones. We use them as communication devices and entertainment devices, as productivity devices, and the best thing about them will be that we don't need to hold anything up. We'll probably still need to use our hands. We'll need touch controllers, or we'll need like virtual keyboards, or we'll be typing and tapping and pointing, but the screen itself will hover in front of our vision. And hopefully in a way that it doesn't obstruct our world so it's dangerous when we're walking around. That's theory number one, where VR integrates itself into our lives. But theory number two comes a little bit more from my recent experience walking around the real world. Now, I live in Tokyo, and I would say that as cities go, and I've lived in a few cities now, Tokyo is a pretty interesting place. It's pretty awesome. There's a lot of stuff to do. But over time, you start to realize that you kind of just wish you were at home playing some video games. And why does that happen? Well, it turns out that when you're walking around, and especially in 2019, and a lot of interesting shops are starting to close down because they don't have the support they need to pay the rent to run a shop, the cities are actually getting a little bit more boring. And the most interesting places tend to be, I may as well just be at home on Amazon, ordering it online, because it's just easier, and I can get better reviews by watching YouTube videos, and I can read the internet and check other people's opinions, I can talk on Discord. It's like, the number of reasons to actually walk around a city and experience real life are just like becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. And I'm not saying I'm trying to escape the real world. The real world, it's just not as captivating a place as it used to be. It used to be that the real world was the only place that you could get a lot of these things. But now it's more like, unless it's food and drink and social interaction, there's actually very few other reasons to actually go out into the real world. And so here's how I'm starting to see how the long-term future of VR is going to pan out. I don't think that gaming will be the main thing that we do on our headsets. I feel like instead of spending 10% of our time at home, logged into our VR headset and doing VR chat things, and then making sure that we exercise and do 90% of our lives outside of VR, I think it'll be the opposite. I think we'll spend maybe 90% of our lives hooked into VR, like this, and then only about 10%, so when we're eating and when we need to recharge, we'll spend about 10% of our lives with the headset off. And this view that we see when we take our headsets off, that'll be like the Steam VR home. Because if you've ever played VR on Steam, basically you'll play the game, and when the game is finished, you'll end up in Steam VR home, which is this fake house, this fake virtual reality house, and you'll be like, I've returned home. And it's really satisfying, because when you've ventured off into space to become a space pirate, or you've been wielding lightsabers in a music world, or whatever it is you're doing, in a fantasy, you've been playing Skyrim, you've been wielding a sword and shield for the past few hours. When you go back to Steam VR Home, it's like, I've returned back home. And I feel like instead of Steam VR Home, it'll be your real home. And you only spend about 10% of your time there. And so in a way, I see reality, actual reality that you live in, not with your headset. I think you'll only see it about 10% of the time, and you'll only come back to base when necessary. I think that reality will become the new main menu. How many main menus do you actually remember? I can think of like the fighting games that I play, and I know that in Under Night there's a scrolling menu. I know in Street Fighter it's got like buttons and stuff, but if you ask me, where exactly is the CFN tab? Where exactly is the Battle Lounge tab? Where is the Options tab? What does the icon look like? I was like, I have no idea, I can't remember. I know that CFN is somewhere on the right and Arcade is somewhere at the top. I feel like the main menu is an important part of games that, as you can see, never really disappears. We still need little hubs, but we don't necessarily spend a lot of time there. It's just a place that we have to go to find other things. And what we'll probably spend most of our time doing is world hopping. I feel like I'll pop into Space World and I'll be flying my spaceship with my Thrustmaster controls, and then I'll come back to base, which might be my virtual home base, and then I'll go back off to Skyrim and I'll be wielding a sword and I'll be doing that. And then sometimes I won't be gaming and I'll go back to virtual Steam home and I'll chat with some virtual friends who have also been playing some games recently, but now we're just in lounge mode and we're just chatting, and I've got the camera set on so I can actually see my coffee here and I can still drink my coffee like this. That was more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And then we'll take the headset off and we'll be like, okay, I need to recharge. There's a few things I need to do. There's some paperwork maybe that I haven't got done here, and I need to shake a hand with a person and wave hello to that person over there, maybe use the toilet, go and take a break, sleep for a little while. And then we'll wake up and it's like, okay, time to go to work. And all work will end up being telemetry. It's just, okay, I've got a meeting for the next couple hours, let's do our meeting, and I can see it's like the Jedi Council. I've got Yoda here, I've got Obi-Wan Kenobi over there, Qui-Gon Jinn is creating trouble over there. Jedi Council's finished, maybe have another coffee. Okay, now it's time to go and play some video games. All right, play some video games. And then I might, it's like, okay, now it's time to go to my real world work where I actually have to act in some sort of performance or something. Okay, well, I need to go to the studio now. I'm gonna leave this on, I'm gonna turn the camera on, and now I can see exactly where I'm going. Sit down on the train, watch a movie. I've got maybe 45 minutes before I get there, so watch a movie here, check my emails there, chatting on Discord, roasting some commenters here on Twitter. I think that we'll spend maybe 80 to 90% of our lives in VR because we can't see any real reason to go back to the real world for 90% of the time. Of course, there will be a lot of things that we can't do in VR that we need to do in real life. But a bit like how the country mouse talks to the town mouse, and the town mouse can't understand at all why the country mouse would want to live in the country, I feel like the countryside and the town will soon become reality and VR. And when we're in VR, we're like, well, I can be in space, or I can wield a sword, or I can play music games with lightsabers, I can also have meetings, I can type documents, I can edit videos, I can play fighting games, I can hang out, I can go to a virtual tournament, we can mince around and chat to people. There'll be so much that we can do in VR that there really will be not much need to spend a majority of our time in reality. I really think reality will become our new main menu. Is that kind of scary? Of course, it's massively scary, and who knows, it may not be the future at all, but I just feel like maybe when towns started to be built, people in the countryside were like, why would you want to spend all your time in the town? Come back to reality where the nature is green and we've got farming and crops and the good life and all those natural things that you're gonna miss out on by living in your concrete jungle. And people got used to the concrete jungle. And people like myself, I'm a city slicker now. Every time I go to the country, I'm like, look, I understand. There are people who love this sort of stuff, but it's just not for me. I just need to be in the city with all the media and all the game centers and all the shopping and all the restaurants and where all my friends are and where the tournaments are and where the locals are and where all the stuff is happening at events, places I can go and network with people. Soon, the new place to live for the town mouse will be VR and reality will be the countryside. What a weird conclusion. But to start with, I really think that, and I'm very excited to hear about the new Vive headset which is coming out. It's going to be not made by HTC. Valve is actually making their own headset, which is going to be like professional level VR. Very excited about that. For gaming, but for social interaction and more everyday stuff, basically smart things that you would do on your smartphone, I'm almost more excited about being able to get these two standalone headsets, go to a friend's house, put them on and join, even though the two of us are here together in real life and we're sharing coffees with each other, in the virtual world, we're actually part of a group chat which has maybe 25 people or 35 people, you never know. The short summary is, I recently watched Sword Art Online 1 and Sword Art Online 2, and I could not see much need to return to Genjutsu, let's say Genjutsu. I could not see much need to return to reality after that. I was like, wait, if we can do all of this stuff in virtual reality, why don't we just make that where we spend the majority of our time? And real life, as much as I appreciate it, it could just be the new countryside or the new main menu where we just go there when necessary. We're not gonna forget reality completely. Just think that we don't need to put so much pressure on ourselves to spend our entire lives there. And I feel the same way. Honestly, the conversation could go on forever, but I really feel like people who spend a large amount of their lives digitally on the internet playing video games, I really don't think there's too much to complain about. There are risks, of course, if they become too disconnected from reality. Maybe there's problems with empathy where they may lose contact and their ideas may become a little bit skewed as to what is okay in the real world and what isn't. I can understand that. But who is to say that a more digital life is a lesser life or a life less worth living than a life that is more digital? Basically, they're about to up the ante over and over and over again, and we're going to become more and more invested into our digital lives. And reality will just become one of 20 different places that we could visit today. Space, the final frontier, my living room. That's not my reality. It's just another place that I can go to chill out for a little while. Now, what do you think of the future of VR? A lot of interesting headsets are coming out, and yes, some that are more powerful than others, but as you can see, a lot of focus on basically getting VR into the hands of more people, and I'm kind of really on board with that. I really want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments section below, or as I like to call it, the new Twitter fodder roasting section. If you liked the video, do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you can. Don't forget, we've also got a Discord channel where you can come and chill out and chat about gear. You can talk about VR stuff, talk about fighting games. Man, I didn't even get to talk about the fact that I really think that we'll be able to just sit in virtual living rooms with our friends and have adventures with each other playing fighting games, but basically still using controllers and on virtual screens. Who knows, maybe it won't happen, maybe it will. It's too exciting, there's too much to talk about. I just get really excited, and it's mostly because of this caffeine, I think. This coffee's really good. I will see you in the next NihongoGamer video.